our organisation, the Dignitatis Humanae Institute, is involved in promoting human dignity in the political square based on the recognition that man is made in the image and likeness of God. So we're always trying to promote a human-centred objective to our interventions, and that's exactly what I'm hoping to do now. I want to make 3 points in response to the subject of this panel, and that is, so the first point is that to prioritise on energetically pursuing and punishing corruption. And Mr. Chairman, I will respond to what you said on that. The second point is that the Catholic principle of subsidiarity, which is to concentrate on bottom-up growth models, especially to working with civil society, with NGOs, with faith organisations, accepting, of course, a lot of these NGOs don't have the level of expertise which is necessary to fulfil some of the more complex projects which are going to be pushed under the PPP proposed here. However, they do have the advantage of working very close at the lowest levels of society, directly on a person-to-person level. And then the third point I'd like to make is the importance on promoting and supporting the growth of local enterprises in indigenous markets, and then allowing them to compete fairly with us in the West. Now, it's difficult to. If I can quote one thing, because in 3 minutes it's not easy to make to substantially support all of those 3 arguments. I'd like to, however, being invited to speak on behalf of the Catholic Church on this occasion, just like to quote Pope Francis and his encyclical Laudato Si, where he's talking about promoting the principle of the common good, especially applied to development here. And I've got chapter, paragraph 158, where Pope Francis says that in the present condition of global society, where injustices abound and growing numbers of people are deprived of basic human rights and considered expendable, the principle of the common good immediately becomes, logically and inevitably, a summons to solidarity and a preferential option for the poorest of our brothers and sisters. And then the Pope goes on, referencing his other encyclical, his exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, talking about the immense dignity of the poor in the light of our driven not as, by our deepest convictions of believers. And those aren't just fuzzy words, because according to the Economist, the total church contribution in the development sphere alone was in 2010 170 billion. That's an enormous, of which 6% of that figure was spent domestically. And that was with the church employing over 1 million people around the world. To put that into perspective, in the same year, 2010, General Electric's revenue was 150 billion, and Walmart employs 2 million. So that sort of puts the Catholic Church's contribution into perspective. And of course, the Catholic Church isn't the only game in town in terms of faith-based organisations. I should reference the principle of zakat, which is the 5th pillar within Islam, and then 2012 the contribution made by the Islamic community. This is total charitable giving, not as the Catholic figure I quoted was specifically in development aid, but the principle of zakat there in 2012 was a figure exceeding $200 billion. And in the United States alone, Protestants contributed some $236 billion in charitable giving. So there's the huge contribution that faith-based communities are able to make. And my final word would simply to be as a plea. Obviously, not an expert in leveraging or public-private partnerships in and of themselves. However, when I said I'd come back to the point about corruption, I saw that just 2 years ago, the UN was unable to trace 3.3 billion that it had allocated towards fighting the Ebola virus. So huge progress has been made, especially with that the internet allows for transparency and for following. but it's not watertight. And there's always going. I know you said, Mr. Chairman, that the idea of catering specific tenders to a preferred applicant has been much reduced because of transparency, but it's still definitely something to bear in mind. And then I'll just finish my remark once again, as I should do, representing here the Institute for Human Dignity, always asking that whatever we do in the world, we remember that the fundamental object of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to help, is the person, the human person. That's got to be the objective. And if we should find out at the conclusion of when we next analyse in a decade's time the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals, and we see that what we've managed to produce are huge sort of skyscrapers in the commercial centres of the developing world, where with the poor still living in shanty towns, we'd have a strong impetus for analysing whether we've really been able to do what we set out to do. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your